By the way, love the suit.
Okay?
Me too.
We start to exit the building. All my kids are in front of me going down the stairwell. I get to the door at the top of the west stairwell in the 1200 building. We hear gunfire.
We start to exit the building. All my kids are in front of me going down the stairwell. I get to the door at the top of the west stairwell in the 1200 building. We hear gunfire. I assume that it's a code red drill because they told us earlier in the day that we're going to be having a code red drill. I assumed it was blanks.
I assume that it's a code red drill because they told us earlier in the day that we're going to be having a code red drill. I assumed it was blanks.
So I grabbed all my kids, started yelling at the kids, get back in rooms, get back into rooms.
So I grabbed all my kids, started yelling at the kids, get back in rooms, get back into rooms.
Shutter, push as many kids into rooms as I can. By the time I get back to my room's door, there's the shooter's already up at the tail end of the hall, at the other end, the east end of the building.
Shutter, push as many kids into rooms as I can. By the time I get back to my room's door, there's the shooter's already up at the tail end of the hall, at the other end, the east end of the building.
Heard two shots. I didn't see it, but then those two shots would have been my friend Scott Beagle getting shot and killed while trying to save his kids.
Heard two shots. I didn't see it, but then those two shots would have been my friend Scott Beagle getting shot and killed while trying to save his kids.
And then I suddenly saw the shooter about 20 feet from me, standing at the end of the hallway, actively shooting down the hallway, just a barrage of bullets. And I'm staring at him thinking, why is the police here? This is strange, because he's in full metal garb, helmet, face mask, bulletproof armor, shooting this rifle that I've never seen before. I don't know when I decided it was the right time to close the door. I grabbed the handle with both hands, and that's when I got nicked, or grazed, or whatever you call it.
So a bullet hit your arm?
Yes. As I'm closing my door, I'm shouting at my next door neighbor, Mr. Scott Beagle, to close his door. And he's the kind of man that would just keep that door open a little longer. You know, he's all about the kids. You know?
Push as many kids into rooms as I can. By the time I get back to my room's door, there's the shooter's already up at the tail end of the hall, at the other end, the east end of the building. Heard two shots. I didn't see it, but then those two shots would have been my friend Scott Beagle getting shot and killed while trying to save his kids. And then he looked down the hallway and started shooting. At this point, I'm pretty much in the middle of the hallway. I go for cover because, well, I realized at this time I can't actually get in my room because my keys are in my room.
Well, I realized at this time I can't actually get in my room because my keys are in my room.
As I'm going for cover, one of my former students, a kid who's a senior named Joaquin Oliver, screamed, turned, he was shot. At that point, I looked down at the shooter. He looked at me, pointed his AR at me, and started shooting. As I'm going for cover, one of my former students, a kid who's a senior named Joaquin Oliver, screamed, turned, he was shot. At that point, I looked down at the shooter. He looked at me, pointed his AR at me, and started shooting. I pushed all my kids by my door to save as many of them as I could.
I pushed all my kids by my door to save as many of them as I could.
As I was doing that, bang, 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 all of a sudden the shooting stopped. I looked down, he was reloading. I yelled, run, and then I ran behind as many kids as I could. Bang, 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 all of a sudden the shooting stopped. I looked down, he was reloading. I yelled, run, and then I ran behind as many kids as I could.
Bang, bang, bang. All of a sudden, the shooting stopped. I looked down. He was reloading. I yelled, "Run!" And then I ran behind as many kids as I could.
Bang, bang, bang. All of a sudden, the shooting stopped. I looked down. He was reloading. I yelled, "Run!" And then I ran behind as many kids as I could. When I got to the door at the top of the stairwell, there's two doors. The closest door, I put my foot there to stop it from opening, hoping to buy my kids some time. As I was leaving, after my kids made it down at least 2 flights of stairs where I couldn't see them anymore, there's a girl on the ground. I shook her. Said, "Hey," tried to get her attention. No response. Reached for trying to find a pulse of some sort. Nothing. At that point, I decided that I did as much as I could for the kids. I now have to make sure I breathe. Went to the second floor, into the conference room, then hid in the men's bathroom till the police came through. A 19-year-old young man who was trouble. I didn't know that at the time because he had a mask on, so I didn't know who it was. I just saw a guy with a gun shooting at my kids.
Why is the police here? This is strange because he's in full metal garb, helmet, face mask, bulletproof armor, shooting this rifle that I've never seen before.
And I saw what happened. I've been around firearms all my life. I know what gunpowder, in this case cordite, smells like. Lots of it was all over the place, and lots of 5.56 rounds on the ground. Only one gun that I know of that shoots 5.56 and semi-automatic. And when I first saw the shooter, he had an AR-15. 19-year-old young man with trouble.
Ernie Rospierski, as a history teacher at Stoneman Douglas High, is being hailed a hero today. He directed dozens of students to safety during last week's shooting. Rospierski, also known as Mr. R, was grazed by a bullet in a third-floor confrontation with a gunman. He has been attending funerals and vigils for some of his students over the weekend, while others demand action in response to these killings. Ernie Rospierski is with us from Parkland, Florida. Thank you very much, Mr. Rospierski, for joining us. We know this is painful and difficult, and it will continue this week. But you are being hailed a hero. You saved students at your own peril. There are reports that you were grazed on the cheek by a bullet.
There are reports that you were grazed on the cheek by a bullet.
That you actually saw Nicholas Cruz reloading his gun. What did you see and what did you do when you realized that this was not a drill?
Well, when I saw it was not a drill, the first thing I was yelling at my kids was to get to cover. When I was in the middle of the hallway at the time, and I saw him point his gun at one of my former students. I saw him go down, and then I grabbed all my kids I could and pushed them into our doors have a little alcove in front of them, and I grabbed my kids and pushed them in there because it was the only cover I could find. And 4 or 5 shots later, it stopped. So
Shots later, it stopped. So
that's when I poked my head around, saw he was either fidgeting with the gun, reloading or something, told my kids to run, and then we left as fast as we could.
You must be very proud of your kids today, Mr. Rospierski, because many people are saying this shooting feels different. These students are speaking out, and they are speaking out in ways that we have not heard before.
The students at Stoneman Douglas have been terrific. Not just the kids that you've had a chance to hear speak, but I personally witnessed one of my kids holding the door, his name is Peter Wang, holding the door, pushing kids through the door while bullets are coming at him. I don't know many adults who could have done that, let alone a 14-year-old boy.
I don't know many adults who could have done that, let alone a 14-year-old boy.
And then the response from our students who are still around and still able to talk, they're taking that opportunity. They're empowered and they're angry.
Ernie, the president says he's going to have a listening tour in the wake of this. What would you want to tell him about your students and what you've experienced?
I'd want to say to the president that we have great kids. We have
great kids. We have
more great kids. We have 14 great kids who needed protection that we couldn't give them. I lost 3 kids in my class. I couldn't help them. I shouldn't have had to.
I couldn't help them. I shouldn't have had to. I shouldn't have had to.
And it's one of those things that, as a lifelong gun owner and a hunter, I'm not saying we should stop the Second Amendment. I'm not saying we should take guns away from people. I'm saying there's no point to somebody having an AR-15. And if somebody wants to argue with me on that, that's cool. If you want an AR-15, we'll go to the range. I get to shoot at you. I get to graze you with a bullet. I get to catch you with some fragments like I did. And then after that, if you still want to buy said weapon, cool. Then I'm going to have you talk to a psychologist, because that gun's not designed to do anything besides kill people. The round itself is unstable and tumbles. That's not normal. That's in contravention of the Geneva Convention, or at least a way around it. And people need to know that. And people need to realize, especially the president, because he has the most power in the free world, and we need to do something to save these kids and to protect our children. Not just my kids, but I have a 17-month-old son at home. I don't want to have to send him to school and have him face this stuff. I'm a 36-year-old man and I'm having trouble dealing with it. I could only imagine what these kids are dealing with.
We all are. Ernie Rospierski, thank you for what you do as a teacher.
Hearing an amazing story today of a heroic teacher who fought to save students from the school shooter in Florida. He's Ernie Rospierski, who's originally from the Detroit area. 7 Next News reporter Anu Prakash is in center line to tell us more about this hero. Anu.
Joanne, such heroic action from Ernie Rospierski. He graduated from the former St. Clement High School here back in 2000. He's been living in Florida, in South Florida, for almost a decade now with his family. I just talked to his father-in-law, who gave a harrowing account of the chaos that unfolded yesterday and how Ernie saved students.
Ernie's tough. He's tough. He's a big guy.
Lee Porter says it's no surprise that his son-in-law, Ernie Rospierski, helped save lives during the mass shooting at Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida. He says Ernie, a history teacher at the school, heard the fire alarm and then...
And when he stepped out in the hall, opened the door naturally for the kids to get out, he heard the shots. So he pushed all his kids back in the classroom, told them to get to the back of the classroom and sit, stay crouched down. So then he shut the door. When he was shutting the door, that's when the guy shot again and grazed his butt when he got shot.
Grazed his butt when he got shot.
That's when he says Ernie saw the shooter, a student he had in class a few years ago. That's when Ernie started running.
He ran up to the 2nd floor and got the kids that were out back in the classrooms, and then Ernie hid in the bathroom.
Again, he says Ernie was grazed by a bullet, but he says he is doing okay.
Grazed his butt when he got shot.